For those of us who are working and who have children, we are trying to manage both. Something made all the more difficult because now, for some of us, work for us and school for our children are both happening in the same place. There are others of us who, for whatever reason, have neither of those obligations, but we are still concerned and worried about what staying home means to us and what not staying home means to us. How lonely we are, how lonely the people we love are who we cannot see or touch. We are worried about the environment, the state of this republic, tomorrow, all piled on top of the everyday things we have always been concerned about. All of this worry and concern and busyness, they all create stress. Stress affects our bodies and our minds. It makes us more susceptible to all kinds of illness. Stress, overwork, busyness, it can literally kill us. What would we change if we could make a difference? You heard the name Alandria Williams lifted up in Stones and Shells earlier in the service. They passed away on September 23rd at the extremely young age of 41. Truly a bright and shining star. For those of you who knew Alandria, they seemed tireless. Alandria was always there for everyone, and their commitment to Unitarian Universalism was unmatched by many. Alandria conducted and facilitated numerous workshops and trainings all over the country. And most recently, along with the Reverend Mr. Barb Grieve, was one of the co-moderators for our Unitarian Universalist Association between the years 2017 and 2020. If you know anything about Alandria, I invite you to do, if you don't know anything about Alandria, I invite you to do a Google search of the name. You will be amazed at what you will find. This person did not stop. When they were needed, if there was a job to be done, they answered the call. Alandria was always where other people needed them to be. But where did Alandria really need to be for Alandria? Not too long before they died, they made one public video post from the hospital. I don't know if Alandria really meant to name it, but they referred to their message as a dispatch from the bed. They said many things, but one of the things they said, which I think will always stay with me, is one needs to take care of self. And at first glance, such a statement may seem selfish, but I guess that depends on the way it was meant. And although I knew Alandria, I didn't know them well enough to be able to imagine everything that was going through their mind, but knowing what I did about their life and the profound difference they made in the lives of others, I would imagine that what Alandria might have meant was that one needs to take care of self. Not necessarily exclusively, but perhaps first. This is not an unusual notion, not for any of us, but it is one that doesn't easily sink in. It is a lesson that is so difficult for us to learn. If you are on an airplane, you're told that in case the cabin loses air pressure, put your oxygen mask on first before trying to help anyone else. Even knowing that you cannot fill a glass from an empty vessel, we still behave in counterintuitive ways when it comes to ourselves. We all do it. Even knowing the difficulties that might be facing us, even knowing what is laying in wait to test our resolve, to challenge us, to potentially wear us out if we let it. We don't always do the obvious. Stop. Slow down. Refresh. Renew. Even athletes who push themselves to physical and mental limits know they must fortify before a competition or a game. There are things we can do something about, and there are things we can't. How we treat ourselves is one thing that we can. It is not so much what we would change if we could make a difference. It is what we would change in order to make a difference. And one of the things we can do is change the way we think about and treat ourselves. We can never find renewal if we don't take care of ourselves. And even more important than that is that sometimes we cannot even maintain equilibrium, much less renewal. As Unitarian Universalists, we often talk about valuing the inherent worth and dignity of others. But sometimes we are our own worst enemy. In our efforts to make the world right, to make positive change, to show each other and the world that we care, we often forget that the being whose inherent worth and dignity that we also need to honor is our own. Not to the exception of everyone and everything else, but because of everyone and everything else. We cannot do what we need and want to do for others or even for ourselves if we don't grasp this understanding. And at the same time that we fail to take care of ourselves, we often think we can do it all without any help. But where do we need to be? During the Time for All Ages, I talk about the body scan meditation. And that is just one possible practice to get us where we need to be within ourselves. We all have physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs that should be carefully tended. And depending on our social and economic location, some of these are more difficult to attend to than others. We still need to try. Very simple things. When we can, we should try to get good rest, eat healthy food, learn new things, engage and rest our minds as well as our bodies. Give and receive love whenever possible. Connect with our inner or higher self. Or if you believe in a divine power, then perhaps that. And one more thing. We should remember that we are not alone. We are here together. And because of that, sometimes we have to remind each other of what to do to be where we need to be. We need to remind each other to stop, to slow down, to refresh, to renew. Where we need to be is where we need to be whole. Where we need to be is where we can find our center, and taking the time to find it in order to be grounded, in order to be able to face the challenges that are coming across our threshold every day, in order to be able to make a difference in a way that can be sustained, in order to just be.